China is finally being recognized as more of an innovator than just a manufacturer. That's kind of the fresh start, and perhaps that's going to be the new wave for China in the future.
Maria Repnikova is politicoloog aan de Universiteit van Georgia. In haar boek Chinese Soft Power onderzoekt ze hoe China de wereld wil veroveren met aantrekkingskracht als belangrijkste wapen. Tegenlicht zocht daarop omdat zij ziet hoe er op het mondiale strijdtoneel van soft power iets cruciaals aan het veranderen is.
China is catching up with the US. The US image is declining and China's image is on the rise. So they're closing the gap.
En dat beeld is steeds minder politiek geregisseerd. Het zijn films, games, influencers en knuffels die China vooruit helpen. En de Chinese overheid ziet dat het werkt.
Chinese media, Chinese state resources, Chinese propaganda machine will say, let's take the story and kind of spin it, because why not?
How cute it is, actually so soft.
Hoe zacht het knuffeltje ook is, Repnikova snapt de kritiek dat het soft power succes van China een scherp randje heeft.
That's a popular way of thinking about China, is that actually there's nothing soft about its diplomacy. There's something kind of evil about it. I think that's a very simplified vision. My goodness, that's exciting. I had never had one of these. Oh, the whole box. Let's see. Oh, interesting bag. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Very cute. It looks a lot like a Soviet doll called Cheburashka that I grew up with the Soviet cartoons in Latvia, and it looks a lot like this particular doll.
We got Lavaboos.
Which one is it?
Look at her.
This is a very popular phenomenon, Labubu dolls, that are produced in China. I heard that all kinds of movie stars are now lining up, or not lining up, they're probably just buying it directly, but it's become kind of a thing. It's almost like something one should have because it's cool. So the coolness factor, I think, is what makes it so exciting. Not necessarily just the doll itself, because if you look at it at the store, you might never notice it, but because it's become this big phenomenon, people are starting to find it very appealing. The interesting thing is that it's become associated with China's soft power as the doll became so popular, something that some describe as almost like unexpected, unanticipated, a surprise soft power, because it's not coming from a state, it's coming from a company and, you know, non-state entities. It is kind of cute, I would have to say. Like, a little scary. I mean, the smile has this very bizarre, sharp teeth, yeah. A little bit of a warning, you know, don't come too close. Like, Atlanta has quite a bit of a history with soft power. One of the things it's remarkably known for is the founding of Coca-Cola. That's, of course, a product we all drink around the world. And it was founded in the 19th century in the city of Atlanta. It's presented as an object of desire, something that quenches thirst. It's also marketed as a product that brings people together. Oftentimes when you look at their branding, everybody's drinking it together. And its association with the American dream, American culture, freedom, desire, attractiveness. Oftentimes they're featuring attractive people drinking it, people coming together. Yeah, a lot of people say that there were cultural Cold Wars in addition to the economic and security competitions, especially between the US and USSR. And certainly there's a lot of credit that's being claimed and given to popular culture as being somehow co-opted into this battle, the cultural war battle during the Cold War. Especially the big stars, including jazz musicians, Elvis Presley, but the products of Coca-Cola as well, and the denim culture and the 80s music. A lot of that was a huge part of American image making. It was not state-led. I mean, sometimes it was co-opted by ambassadorial missions and so forth, but it was really just coming from the bottom up. It was exported. It was kind of commercial in many ways. But also it created a lot of curiosity. People were wondering, what is this America all about? Like, it seems like it's very free-spirited and kind of wild and creative, improvisational, vibrant. People were excited to sort of try it on. It was cool to be American.
The American dream is still the image they're trying to portray, but the reality contradicts it, which makes it very hard to sell the image the way it used to be.
The original concept of soft power was coined by Joseph Nye in 1990. It was the tail end of the Cold War. Joseph Nye's idea was that the US still has expansive power resources because it lost so much economic power and all kinds of security resources during the Cold War. And some historians were saying the US is going to decline. This is kind of the end of the US. And he was saying, no, we actually have this untapped resource of soft power, something that's less tangible, but equally important. And it is about getting others to follow you, to do what you like them to do without force. So no coercion, no economic inducement. It's something that's transpired through what he described as attraction. Hard power and soft power are seen as two opposite forms of power. Hard is military. Hard power is also economic resources. So having a very strong economy, being able to trade with many different countries around the world, being the major trade partner, all of that is part of hard power as well. Soft power is not either of those things. It's about attraction. And attraction comes in three forms. One is values. So democratic values, freedom of expression, the US, until recently was really associated with those values, so promoted them quite widely around the world. The second one is culture, and tonight popular culture was a big thing. So Hollywood and all kinds of culture productions, music, hip hop, jazz, American culture from the bottom up. And then finally, it's also about foreign policy, morally sound foreign policy. So when the US is waging wars, like in Iraq or in other parts of the world, it's basically hurting its soft power. But when it's trying to create alliances and build rapport, then it's kind of a positive soft power through foreign policy. So those were the things that he coined and described as soft power. But the concept itself is quite malleable, it's very broad, and it's traveled around the world. It's become almost an idea that's been exported from the US to other countries. European Union has embraced this term in 2000s. Russia is using the term soft power. It has used it until recently. But the biggest kind of power, the biggest actor that's using it so widely is China. So interestingly, it's of course also a competitor to the United States, and it is not a democratic country, but it has widely embraced this idea of soft power and has reinvented it to suit its own context. They care a lot about soft power because it's seen as a critical element towards China's rise as a great power.
你叫什么名字？
我叫林达俊。
林达俊，我叫玛利亚。
哦，玛利亚。
对，很高兴认识你。这个东西是好卖吗？
那个是
这个拉布布，很多人买吗？
我已经是，好像是已经流行一阵子了。
知道在大的城市，比方说在欧洲这个城市，有很多人排队买这个，
真的
很多人，40个多人在排队，对，然后这个东西买不到。所以很流行的，我不知道为什么。
我也不知道为什么。
你喜欢这个样子吗？
我个人不会喜欢。
我也不会喜欢。
对。
为什么？
我不会喜欢了，我老人啊。
有一点可怕的这个。
对啊。因为我有生意，我就拿来卖啊。
哦，明白了。
So there is a lot of talk now about this accidental soft power that's associated with these very popular dolls that are also being bought by celebrities. And initially, I think it was popularized by a K-pop star. So what was interesting to me is that it came from China, started to get popularized in Southeast Asia, Asia at large, and then it became quite a big phenomena also in Europe, the US, and just around the world. Chinese state media and Chinese media at large has really picked up on the story. They're like, oh my gosh, people are buying those dolls. It's about China. It's Chinese creativity. Finally, we're entering the stage of creative production that's appreciated by other countries. So even though somebody buying the doll might say, I don't really care about China, Chinese media, Chinese state resources, Chinese propaganda machine will say, let's take the story and kind of spin it, because why not? It benefits us, and it is a Chinese company selling the doll. So they're turning the story around to actually tell a version of themselves, a vision of themselves of innovation, creativity, and China becoming a creative maker that's competing with Western countries. And that's very new for China and very exciting. Chinese soft power is quite different from the US. So in mid-2000s, the concept of soft power traveled to China, and it was invoked by the highest level officials. Like Hu Jintao, at the time, the president of China, was literally invoking it at major party meetings. Under the current administration, Xi Jinping's rule, it gets mentioned a lot in his speeches and all kinds of documents. But the way it's interpreted is different. It's much more open-ended. The American idea, the original idea, was really concerned primarily with external audiences. So it's international publics. How does the rest of the world see America? Let's convince them to like us, or let's attract them to follow us in our footsteps. When it comes to China, they're often concerned also with domestic audience. Domestic meaning Chinese people. So can Chinese people develop a cultural confidence and actually believe that their culture, their prowess in the cultural sphere is superior or at the very least competitive with the West? Why is that important? Because if not, then a lot of Western culture just comes into China and kind of infiltrates, so to speak, Chinese society, which may eventually make Chinese people question whether they want to be living under one-party rule. The goal of soft power, right, when it comes to attraction, this major idea that Joseph Nye proposed, in Chinese writings, they often talk about respect, recognition. That's not quite the same as attraction. It's like you have to recognize us. We want to be seen as a major power, an important player, as a responsible global power. Whereas in the American mentality, it's about liking us, attraction, following and imitating. But in Chinese conception is that we don't need to tell you what to do. That's oftentimes part of their actual soft power, is that we don't need to tell you what to do. You should do whatever you want. Come to China, you can see what we've accomplished. If you want to take something from us, feel free. If not, it's okay. So that's also a big difference with how the US and Chinese, I think, scholars, officials think about the idea of soft power.
We are here in China! Come on, bro. It's about to be our first time experiencing China. Let's go see what China's about, man. We're here in China. Oh, ni hao.
I see you before.
What's my name?
I sleep.
Right? You actually know me. How do you know me? It's about to crash into the wall. A train to go into a building.
This YouTube influencer showed off China in its full glory, and I believe he has like over 40 million followers now. It really got them interested in China. So the reason why it was such a big deal is that Chinese government has also co-opted some of these stories and his journey, and state media reported about his own, journey through China. They were recording him live as he was recording. It was this whole kind of co-production of image. They were very excited because it really boosted China's image as a country that's welcoming, that's very high-tech, that's, got all these incredible new vehicles that can drive through water and all sorts of terrains. That's friendly. A lot of people were, for the most part, very welcoming of him.
Oh my God. We are really in the car, and it's flowing in the car. This car's not sinking. It's not sinking. Hey, China got it. And these Chinese cars got it. Hey, these China cars got it, bro. Oh.
But I think this is something that fits into a bigger story as well of China, Chinese government, and China at large really liking to invite foreigners who will then so-called understand China. They often use this word, understand China, to kind of really appropriately experience it and then tell the good story themselves. So I think this is something that the Chinese state is also picking up on. Let's invite people who are popular on social media and let's get them to China. As soon as they come here, they will definitely create this image of China as organically interesting and exciting. The idea of just inviting influencers is a lot more effective than even inviting state media journalists or journalists at large, because they're seen as like, okay, well, they're sort of already part of a power structure. They're not independent. They have their interests. They have the interests of their country in mind. They're kind of diplomats. But YouTube influencers are not. They're just individuals who just have a big following. They're selling products. They're selling their brand. So them saying all these things about China, I think people think they don't have to. So there's more organic fluidity, and I think there's more credibility and authenticity.
You must be brave and walk your own path.
So we just saw the trailer for the English version of Neja 2. First, it was a big hit domestically in China. Interestingly, it started domestically, but then became a global sensation. It's an animation film that draws on China's ancient mythology. But the exciting thing was that it's one of the first animation films coming from China, produced in China. It's not a hybrid film in a sense that it's like a Hollywood co-production. In the past, most films that became big were Hollywood co-productions. But now there's no US involved here. It really is a Chinese story, Chinese production, and it became a really big hit. The Chinese state media and the Chinese state took it very seriously, and they're now very much owning the story. They're saying, yes, this is, again, our charge into this creative production world. We can do this. This is our new way. But another part of it is not very political. It's not about contemporary Chinese politics. There's nothing there about political systems or certain governments. It's all, mythical. A lot of Chinese culture production has this kind of ancient mythical appeal. The idea that China is this power that has over 5,000 years of history and it's very proud of its history and we have to respect and learn about it. So I think that taps into the official narrative of what China is. It's bound in this incredible historical narration. It's a major historical power. It's not just a newcomer like the United States. Sometimes soft power in the Chinese context has been critiqued as being propaganda. It's like, oh, this is just state telling things, or we don't believe that. It's not natural. It's propaganda. So the term gets used quite often. Interestingly, in Chinese, the term propaganda, 宣传, is also translated as publicity. So it has double meanings, and the Department of Propaganda, the big kind of bureaucracy that manages all this media outlets and communication, used to be called, in English, propaganda, right? But now it's called publicity. So publicity makes it sound a lot softer, a lot more open-ended, kind of like public relations.
So China's soft power is expanding rapidly. Should we be worried about the consequences?
It can be seen as something threatening at times because it's associated with China. The term that has come up or has been created mostly in the American establishment is sharp power. You know, it looks soft, but actually they're out there to get us. They're out there to coerce us, they're out there to create compliance, they're out there to promote censorship. It's not soft. It's like, it looks soft, but everything is sort of like a Trojan horse. Like, you know, once you look inside, you're like, oh my gosh, it's actually quite scary. And there's something kind of evil about it. That's a popular way of thinking about China, is that actually there's nothing soft about its diplomacy. I think that's a very simplified vision because it makes it look like then, unless it's us practicing diplomacy or soft power or exporting culture, unless it's us, meaning democracies, then, you know, it's not good, it's something evil. It's very unhelpful because then we don't really understand China. So I think what we need to do more is to grapple with it, to understand it, to demystify it, because fear actually mystifies and others, you know, China. It almost kind of exotifies us to the point that it becomes this entity that's impossible to understand, to have any empathy for. It becomes dehumanized. So in order to actually exist with China, to coexist with it, which is something we have to do in the future, we need to be leaning more towards understanding and knowledge production about it before succumbing to fear. China is catching up with the US. US image is declining and China's image is on the rise. It's still taking a long time for China to reach its audiences, so I think we have a few examples of success through popular exports like Labubu doll, some video games, Ja 2, the film. We have a few really big success stories, but it's still not quite full picture, right? China is still spending tons of money, according to The Economist's earlier statistic, $10 billion a year is being spent on, quote, soft power, public diplomacy. And the outcomes are still very mixed. And I think the reason it took it so long, well, in part because China had associations that, you know, people held about it, that it's not innovative. And from the very young age when I was studying China as a student, a lot of Western colleagues who don't work on China or just friends of friends would say, gosh, they just copy everything. So the stereotype is like they're just making cheap stuff and we're buying it. They still make some cheap stuff, but they're also innovating. China is finally being recognized as more of an innovator than just a manufacturer. I think that's kind of the fresh start, and perhaps that's going to be the new wave for China in the future.
There are negative news about America all the time. Like every single day there are negative stories about attacks on civil society, education system, immigrants. The US is presenting itself as not accessible anymore. They're even now putting a new tax on visas for foreign visitors. So I find that to be extremely dangerous and very negative when it comes to US image making and soft power. It almost looks like the current government completely abandoned soft power. It's almost like we don't really care, we don't need it. And it's relying on tactics like coercion, you know, when it comes to trade deals, threatening other countries, threatening other people to get what it wants. So really relying on hard power and like the hard edge of hard power. The American dream is, I think the biggest part of it is about freedom and the pursuit of one's individual ambition, and that America offers reinvention. You can come here and you can become somebody else. I think that that's still the image they're trying to portray, but the image, of course, contradicts the reality of immigration being targeted by the current government, people being, you know, thrown out of the country, the challenges of getting visas here, the educational frictions and so forth. So the image is still coming out in that form, but the reality contradicts it, which makes it very hard to sell the image the way it used to be.
Repnikova ziet dat Amerika steeds minder aantrekkingskracht heeft als het land van de onbegrensde mogelijkheden. Terwijl de Chinese droom aan terrein wint, vooral in opkomende economieën.
It was often told to me, by various people on the ground in Ethiopia, but also from people from other parts of Africa that I met in China, that the US seems to be not very present. So they would even ask me, as somebody coming from the States, I was associated somehow with America. They would say, "Where's America?" And it's like, quite directly. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, I'm not an American embassy personnel. I had to learn that phrase in Amharic, Ethiopia's national language, to say I'm not from the embassy, because they really wanted to ask me, where are you? Where are you guys? You're not building anything. You're not proactive. China is taking over the whole space. A lot of humanitarian aid coming from USAID. Again, we can argue whether that's soft power or not, but it certainly made the US image more, positive. It's being cut entirely, right? So these types of huge inputs are completely obliterated. And as a result, the US has almost nothing to show for itself. There's a lot of material offerings that come with Chinese public diplomacy in the global south. That's something I describe as material enticement, that they're offering not just kind of a story, they're offering opportunities. So for example, many officials in Ethiopia have traveled to China for trainings, for the short-term trips. They invited for this free, journeys, all covered, expense covered experiences. And for them, this was their first time abroad, first time to travel on a plane for some people. So China offers access, which is something that's very distinct from, I think, any other power competing in the region, because oftentimes, for instance, the US, and I would say even Europe, can be seen as kind of imaginary. It's like, I really want to go there, but how do I get there? I have no idea. How do I make my path, my way towards, let's say, the Netherlands or the United States? It's complicated. But China is saying, we have a path for you. It's very simple. China is also offering almost no-cost Chinese language classes at various universities. They're described as Confucius Institutes and classrooms, which in the West have a really bad reputation. Most of them have been shut down or questioned because they're accused of ideological promotion, again, propaganda we talked about earlier. In Africa and many parts of the global south, they're very vibrant. And one of the reasons is, again, the material offerings is that they often come with jobs. So if you learn Chinese, you can become a translator, for instance, for a Chinese company. And in my experience interviewing those translators, they get paid 2 to 3 times more than a professor. And with the US now withdrawing its diplomacy from the global south, shrinking it, China becomes almost the only opportunity. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to like China or will think it's great, but it does mean that the opportunities will come primarily from China, and that's a big change. La 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 la.